up Twitter the right way with both accounts, right? All right. All right. All right, guys, we're going to rock and roll here shortly on the Jerry and Jerry show. You do need to line up it on Hootie's Twitter account. Cool. Like and share the show, viewers and listeners. T-minus 1 minute or two to get this party started. We're going to be talking about that victory against Miami. An impressive victory for the Wahoos in what was a physical test against the visiting Hurricanes. Of course, we're going to talk about that court ceremony with Tony Bennett. What a surprise to see the individual signatures of past players and coaches and support staff in that signature. Just a testament to Tony Bennett's 3 pillars and his selfless mantra and how he goes about carrying himself in this world. I frankly, it got me emotional. I encourage you, the viewer and listener, to ask questions, to share the show. We're excited for, what is the water cooler of Virginia sports, the Jerry and Jerry show. And we encourage all the various states that watch the program to join us in the discussion, as Virginia is now the 11th ranked team in the country, their highest ranking of the year, and itching to climb into the top 10 with a looming matchup against the Duke Blue Devils on Saturday. Judah, things are looking good on our end. As long as you get the Twitter set up, I think we can start the program, my friend. Make sure you take a look at group, too. Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the Jerry and Jerry Show. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille network on a show that spotlights Virginia Sports Hall of Famer Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, a household name in ACC sports circles and, of course, across this UVA sports landscape that is deep, robust, passionate, and certainly has a lot to cheer for. Goodness, we could make an argument that the start of the 2025-2026 sports season at UVA is maybe the best start in Virginia athletics history. You have the most single season wins for a football team. Tony Elliott this past, couple of weeks, month and change, couple of months. Now you got Virginia basketball knocking on the door of the top 10, a matchup against the Duke Blue Devils looming, and a team that clearly looks like it can make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about all those storylines and more, including an impressive victory against the visiting Miami Hurricanes, where Miami punched UVA in the mouth multiple times. Virginia staggered against the ropes. They did not fall. Again, resilient, stood up to the physicality and sent Miami packing to South Florida on a night we will all remember, as Tony Bennett's iconic signature is now glazing the hardwood of the John Paul Jones Arena. We encourage you, the viewer and listener, to join us in the discussion. Judah Wickhauer is behind the camera. If you can go to the studio camera, then a 2-shot as we welcome Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe to the program. Goodness gracious, my friend, we have Tony Bennett's signature on the court. We have the fantastic surprise that support staff, coaches, and former players had their signatures also included into Coach Bennett's. We had a win against the Hurricanes. And we have Duke looming. So much to cover.
Yeah, that was a glorious day last Saturday, for sure, with the dedication and the win. That was, I think when they look back on it, that's going to be a big win for Virginia in terms of the season. We're down by 11 points at one point in the first half, down 44-39 at halftime. and came back and fought like crazy. I mean, it was a hell of a basketball game. There was 14 times in the game that the score was tied, and 12 times the lead changed. It was back and forth until the bitter end when Chance Mallory made incredibly heady play, taking the ball and rushing down the court before Jai Lucas could call timeout and drew the foul on the three-point shot, and then made all 3 free throws with 3.5 seconds left to play. And then DeRitter made a nice defensive play at the end when Miami was going to try a desperation 3, and he intercepted the inbounds pass, and it was all over. And heck of a win, 24th win of the season. And you're right about the Tony Bennett ceremony. It couldn't have been done any better, I don't think. The fact that Ryan Odom played a key role in that, I thought was special. Tony Bennett had actually asked or suggested that Ryan keep his team and himself in the locker room instead of coming out on the court pregame because it was such a big game. He didn't want to distract from that. But Ryan wouldn't have it. He felt like it was important for these players to witness a part of Virginia history and get a feel for the university and the program, which was turned out to be a really good idea, I think. And Ryan was, you could tell he put so much thought into trying to figure out the best ways to handle that situation. And the fact that he came up with the painting of Tony Bennett and his father, Dick Bennett, in an embrace, I guess, from the Final Four or the national championship was incredible. I don't know that you could have given a better gift that would have touched Tony Bennett more than that.
I thought it was special on so many different levels and ways. The fact that Dave Odom and Ryan Odom were on the floor. The fact that Tony Bennett made reference to his parents who were not there. The fact that Tony Bennett on the broadcast, when he was a guest for a handful of minutes, was it West Durham? And,
West Durham, my friend West Durham.
Randolph
He'll
Childress.
be here again tonight for the NC State game.
For the NC State game. And the entire time during the broadcast, when Wes and Randolph were trying to heap praise on Coach Bennett, he changed the direction of the conversation to the game flow and what was happening on the basketball court, or he passed the attention on to former players and assistant coaches and support staff. The fact that in the signature, Tony Bennett's signature on the court, the former players, coaches, and support staff have their signatures included is one of the most selfless acts I've ever seen. It reminded me of Coach Bennett when he was when he earned a raise. He was performing, he was winning, he was living up to his contract and then some. He was entitled to more money. I thought he was frankly underpaid, and he said, "I don't want any more money. I want to give this money to the coaches, my assistant coaches." I mean, it got me choked up watching this.
Yeah, and he didn't want people to know that then. John Oliver told me that, and I wrote a story about it. Otherwise, I don't know that we would have ever known. But yeah, he turned down a raise. Who does that? These guys are usually figuring every angle that they possibly can to get a raise, let alone turn one down and share it with their staff. But I agree with you. It was a brilliant idea from Tony's part to ask for that, to have all those names embedded in his signature on the floor. I'm going to go by early tonight just to take a look at that and see what it looks like up close and personal. I didn't have time to do it the other night. There was too many people still in the arena after the game. But, yeah, that was an incredible idea on Tony's part.
Cliff Daisy's watching on the Eastern Shore. He says, "Happy Tuesday morning, gentlemen.
Hey, Cliff.
On the edge of my seat for the UVA Miami game. What a win. I'm looking forward to the ACC tournament. I hope you both are doing well." Cliff Daisy, thank you for watching the program. Renee Pettiford, does she watch in Charlotte, North Carolina?
I think she's in Durham.
And Durham, Renee Pettiford, one of the biggest Virginia sports fans, basketball fans that I know. And she says, "Oh my goodness, Jerry, we made an 8-0 run, and Wes and Randolph and Tony on the broadcast were completely into the game." She says she's still smiling, and she loved what Ryan Odom said to Tony Bennett, and that she was texting with friends during the game when Tony was in the booth, and they made the run, and my friends said, "Keep him in the booth." I thought the same thing, Renee Pettiford. The run was going on, and goodness gracious, Coach Bennett was so into the contest, talking about Jakari White, talking about this team, their depth. Lisa Green is watching the program. Vanessa Parkhill is watching the program. Like and share the show. Folks in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Northern Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky on our feed right now as Wahoo Nation is captivated by what is a magical start to the season. Number 11 in the polls, Virginia basketball, a looming matchup against Duke. We will talk the matchup against NC State tonight. First, let's talk this Miami victory. Miami came out with physicality. As physical a matchup I have seen Virginia play this year, an opponent. And at first they staggered, Hootie.
Yeah.
They were staggering against the ropes, Virginia, and they got their footing, a basketball analogy, and started fighting back.
And I'll give the officials some credit too. They let them play a little bit, which I think is a good thing, because once you get into NCAA tournament play, it seems like the officiating loosens up a lot, and they let people play, and you better be prepared to do that. And if they're getting accustomed to that now, in the final weeks of the regular season, that's a good sign. And it was about as physical a game as you could ask for this season so far. And Miami, you give them credit, they didn't back down a bit. And in fact, they took it to Virginia early, and Virginia had to respond, and they did a good job of responding. And Virginia is one of the more physical teams in the ACC, if not the country. It was something that Will Wade even pointed out yesterday in his ACC teleconference, that he's concerned about that, if his team can match that physicality. And I think that's every coach that's played Virginia this year has mentioned that if Virginia is much more physical in person than you can detect on film in the scouting. And so it takes a real life adjustment when you get into the arena with them and they start mixing it up. If you don't have an answer, then you're going to get beat up. I
also think Virginia basketball is playing its best basketball of the season right now. Jakari White, we cannot emphasize enough the importance of Jakari White for this Virginia men's basketball team and his three-point shooting. And he appears darn near close to completely healthy. He was one of the key components to the win against Miami with his three-point shooting. The cast has gone from, a cast for a broken hand to a splint, to now a wrap. Mm-hmm. He's bouncy. He's confident. He's attacking the rack. He's smiling. He plays with joy.
Yes, he does.
It is contagious. This team is certainly better when Devin Tillis is healthy, as a guy who can come off the bench and give them anywhere from 10 to 14 minutes. But I think his return is imminent. He's what, is he questionable tonight?
Yeah,
against NC State.
Yeah, a couple of the writers bumped into him in the parking lot walking into the arena before Saturday's game, and he said he wasn't going to play that night, but that he hoped to be back by Tuesday. But we'll see how that goes.
My standpoint, just as a guy with a microphone, I let Tillis, who's got historic and chronic knee issues, to get completely healthy, missed the game tonight against NC State, so he's fresh and healed for the Duke matchup on Saturday. Those are just my 2 cents. Chance Mallory deserves tremendous attention. Renee Pettiford is exactly right. Mark Brown's watching the program. He says, I absolutely love this show. Shift God 137 on YouTube is watching from Northern Albemarle County. We'll get to your comments on YouTube. If you like the show, viewers and listeners, and you love what Jerry Ratcliffe is doing, support him and we have some big-time news on the near horizon with JerryRatcliffe.com. And that news we will be very, very soon to pass along to you, the viewer, listener, and the reader. And it's going to be news of significance for JerryRatcliffe.com. But if you like this show, hammer the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, ask a question, share the show. We're asking you kindly to do that. Chance Mallory goes to the free throw line. He has 3 of the biggest free throws that he's made potentially in his entire life. Mm-hmm. 3 of the most significant free throws that I can remember for Virginia basketball since 2019 when Kyle Guy hit 3 straight free throws. I'm not putting him in the same category, but not since 2019 have we seen 3 free throws of significance. One of Miami's players was talking tremendous smack to Chance Mallory.
Don't doubt that at all.
The television broadcast showed it. Prior to the free throw, the first free throw, a Miami player went up to him, literally got in his face, got in his head, was trying to talk smack so he would miss it. Chance was barking back, and then he basically nodded at his head and said, "Watch what I'm going to do here," and made 3 straight.
You're not going to intimidate Chance Mallory. He's never backed down, and he has not just a physical toughness, but a mental toughness. And if you're trying to intimidate that guy, you're wasting your time.
I couldn't agree with you more. Talking smack to Chance Mallory is the opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah.
His makeup is his makeup is one where you stay quiet with him. You don't talk smack to Chance Mallory.
And he's a pretty darn good free throw shooter too. So, he made all 3 of those. It wasn't a problem, and I kind of thought he might make all 3. I
thought the same. I thought in that scenario, when the Miami player was talking smack to him, he was going to drill all 3 of these to make a point. I got to ask you a question. They're the clear-cut number 2 team in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Virginia at 12-2, Miami's 10-4. That win against the Hurricanes was huge from a tie-breaker standpoint.
Yes, it certainly was.
Dot the I's and cross the T's against NC State tonight, and then you have a matchup of number 1 against number 11 on Saturday, which we will get to. Talk to us about Virginia and what you're seeing at this part of the season. Are they peaking in your standpoint?
I think they're edging toward that. Jim Boeheim made the comment a couple of weeks ago that we haven't seen Virginia play their best basketball yet, and he was correct. But I think they're inching toward that, and we saw that in the first half at Georgia Tech, which it's not a great example because Georgia Tech is not playing that well, even though they did beat NC State, I think, recently. But Virginia did what they had to do in that game. They took it to Tech on the road. They didn't let up until the second half when it was kind of hard to keep your interest with essentially a 30-point lead or whatever it was. But they took care of business, and they came home and got ready for one of the better teams in the league, and won a dogfight on their home court and set themselves up for a nice finish to the season. And it won't be an easy one because NC State is pretty good. We all know about Duke. Wake Forest can jump up and bite you, and we've seen what Virginia Tech can do if things are falling their way. So nothing is guaranteed. But I think he is bringing this team along to where it's going to peak at the right time, and which is in the postseason, and that's when teams should be playing their best basketball.
7 o'clock tip against the Wolfpack on the ACC network, John Paul Jones Arena. Esta noche, that's Spanish for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The line open at 5.5, depending on where you shop. It's now 6.5. Virginia favored. Shift God 137 watching in northern Albemarle County. I'm happy to see Virginia finally getting some respect in the polls. Tonight's game is very important regarding momentum. Amen, brother. And we appreciate when you watch the program. If you like the show, hammer the like button, hammer the subscribe button, Ask us a question. We work hard for you. That's the only thing we ask in return. And stay tuned for some news of significance on jerryratcliffe.com, which is the source of the source for anything Virginia athletics related. Jeremy Wilson is giving props to the show in Eastern Tennessee. James Madison is watching in Mineral, Virginia. Bobby Kohler is watching the program. He said, I'm so glad Grunlow had a good game. If he gets his mojo going, Virginia is going to be that much more dangerous.
That's a very good point.
Grunlow was fantastic.
He was that was maybe his best game the other night. Maybe perhaps not from the scoring standpoint, but from the overall standpoint. 12 points, 5 blocked shots, which was pretty amazing. 4 rebounds, 4 out of 5 field goals, 2 out of 2 from the 3-point arc.
A stretch 5.
He was active all over the floor, and if they can get that kind of effort from him to go along with Ugo, man, that's a big punch in the middle of your in the middle of your defense to have 2 7-footers who are playing at their peak of their game.
Glenn Dotson watching the program. I believe it's the first time he's interacted with the show with a like standpoint on Facebook. The show airs on 15 Facebook pages, 15 Twitter accounts, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, the Fountain app, the Rumble app, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere and everywhere you get your social media. Glenn Dotson, where are you watching the show, my friend? Grunlow, when he is playing well, he offers a stretching of the floor capability for Virginia hoops, which I think is extremely important for DeRidder's upside. When DeRidder is able to get the basketball, I think he might be at his best when he's able to get the basketball at the top of the key or somewhere behind Bonasphere, take 3 or 4 power dribbles, and then start utilizing his wide shoulder base to maybe get to his right hand, where he either has a right hook or he's able to finish around the rim. He's even introduced a new left-handed hook of late. But when Grunlow and Jakari White, Chance Mallory, and Thomas are shooting well from outside, that opens up the interior. Sam Lewis for DeRidder. Your thoughts on that, Virginia Sports Hall of Famer?
I think that's the whole key to this team is the perimeter shooting, and it's a luxury to have 2 7-footers who can play like they do inside. But I think what really makes this team go is DeRidder when he has space to work. And if they're not making their shots from the perimeter, they can crowd him down in the paint and keep him under control, double team him when they need to. But if these guys are bombs away from outside, they can't afford to do that. They can't clog up the middle. They have to respect the shooting. They have to get out on the line and try to at least harass the 3-point shooters. But if those shots are going in, that gives DeRidder a clear path to the basket. And once he gets that, you're not going to stop him. You're either going to let him score or you're going to foul him. And either one is bad news for you.
Glenn Dodson's watching in Danville, Virginia. Welcome to the family, Glenn Dodson. We appreciate your support, your viewership. Make sure you check out jerryratcliffe.com. Significant news on the near horizon at jerryratcliffe.com. NC State tonight started at 5.5, now at 6.5. The Wahoo's favored. Coach Wade in his comments on the teleconference, this is a completely different basketball team with a healthy Jakari White. He straight up said Jakari White won Virginia the Florida State game. And I'm going to tell you right now, Chance Mallory and Jakari White, this entire team, but Jakari White had 17 against the Hurricanes. Jakari White did.
Yeah, and he was 5 of 8 from the arc. And you could just tell he was on from the very beginning the other night. And, I mean, he's back. He's so valuable to this team because he's such a pure shooter. And he made a lot of big plays, and the one down the stretch was huge. And then Chance finished it off. But Coach Lucas mentioned in this postgame, he said that when he was reviewing the scouting film on Virginia and going down their personnel. Unlike who was it the week before? Oh, the Florida State coach, who said when he went down the thing, he kept looking at the roster and checking it off, saying, "Grown man, grown man,
Yeah.
grown man, grown man." Well, Lucas saw immediately that, and commented. He said, "I could tell that Chance Mallory is the swagger of this basketball team, and that he and Jakari White are the swagger and the personality of this team." And it's pretty evident that when those guys are on the floor and they're playing well, they're almost unstoppable.
Troy Foster watching the program in Lynchburg, Virginia. We have 13 states on the Jerry and Jerry show right now, talking Virginia basketball, the 11th ranked team in the country. What separates Virginia basketball against Duke? My wife and I, our two sons, we spent all of Saturday watching basketball. Mm-hmm. We watched Virginia win. We watched UConn play. We watched Houston lose. We watched Duke beat up Michigan in a hell of a ball game.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, Duke is effing loaded.
They are.
The Boozer kid, who looks like a top 5 draft pick, top 4 draft pick, he got into foul trouble, and he still finished with nearly a triple-double, was the best player on the floor, and at times was unstoppable.
Yeah, and that's who he is. He's probably the number 2 guy in the draft behind the BYU kid, I think, who I saw a little bit of him Saturday night as well. That guy's had some Michael Jordan-like moves toward the basket. But, I mean, Duke is loaded. They're always seemingly loaded, and this is no different. They have terrific players all over the floor. Their only weakness going into the season, which is probably not a weakness anymore, is that they were so young. But it's like Ryan Odom said of Chance Mallory the other day. He says Chance is not a freshman anymore. Well, those Duke guys, they're not freshmen anymore either, and they're a really good basketball team. They're playing really well right now, just like Virginia is. They're at home where they're almost impossible to beat, and I think it's going to be a basketball war when these two teams play. And the thing that Virginia has to be very cautious about is going into Cameron. And I know buildings and environments usually don't beat you. And I know Coach Jones has told me about that several times. He's not a big believer in that, but even he would admit that if you go into a place like that and you don't get off to a good start, the other team is playing well, that the environment can swallow you up because everything intensifies and you put more pressure on yourself. And having covered games at Cameron since the late 70s, I've seen so many great basketball teams over that stretch of time, some of the great Carolina teams, some of the great Virginia teams. I saw UCLA come in there once. They were one of the top teams in the country and just had a total meltdown in Cameron because of all those factors. So that I think you got to make sure you get off to a good start there. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that none of Virginia's players have ever played there before. So it's definitely a different intimidating environment than you're normally going to run into.
James Watson watching the program, he says this show is absolutely fantastic, and he looks forward to the program every single week. We appreciate you, James Watson. Mark Coleman watching the program loves the show. He says, "Let's beat that Wolfpack." Mark Coleman, amen, brother. He's watching the program. I can just tell on the program with the viewership and the listenership and the engagement, countrywide engagement on the program right now, that the passion and the interest is palpable. It's tangible. through an internet service provider while doing this program, ladies and gentlemen. Hammer the like button, share the show, visit jerryratcliffe.com. Glenn Dotson says that he loves the program and he's been a Wahoo fan since 1980. We got Wahoo fans of all ages watching the show right now. Let's talk about Virginia and 11th in the polls here, the 11th ranked team in the country. I kind of hinted at this last week, and I've been talking about it on our 12:30 show, the I Love CVille show. This might be the best start to an athletic season at the University of Virginia, maybe in the school's history. There's no person that's better suited to answer this question than you. How long have you been covering Virginia athletics?
Since 82.
Since 1982.
Yeah.
Since 1982. Is this the best start to the sports season at UVA since you've covered the program?
Probably so, because I mean the fact that the football team won 11 games and played in a decent bowl game, and that obviously that's a record. The program had only won 10 games once ever before. So to surpass that was a milestone, and the fact that the basketball team is on the verge of the top 10 in the country, it's hard to match that. I mean, 2019 was a great year, and the fact that they won the the Coastal Division title for the only time, and played in the ACC championship game, played in the Orange Bowl, and the basketball team won the national championship. You'd have to go back into the 90s, I think. Some of the George Welsh teams from 89 to maybe 91 and maybe around 95 and 98, somewhere in there, had some great starts, some seasons, and at the same time, Terry Holland and Jeff Jones teams were doing well. But this I'd have to go back and look at it year by year. But I think this would be hard to match because of what the football team accomplished with a top 25 finish, and now what the basketball team's doing.
We have viewers and listeners watching the program and pumping us with questions and comments, and we love it. Hammer the like button, share the show, ask a question. Jeremy Ronica, one of the biggest UVA sports fans that I know, thinks 11th in the national polls is still underrated. I thought the same, Jeremy Who. I still do not think national pollsters truly understand the depth and the talent and the resilience of this roster. Now, I could be living in a fishbowl. I'm sitting in a chair less than 2 miles away from the John Paul Jones Arena wearing an orange Brooks Brothers button-down shirt while eagerly awaiting a 7 o'clock tip-off with my wife and our 2 sons against NC State in a house that's 5 minutes from the John Paul Jones Arena. Okay, I understand I'm in a fishbowl. I frankly also believe that 11th in the rankings was undervalued. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think probably the reason for that is that they don't have any teams, any wins against the elite teams in the country.
They don't have a marquee win.
Exactly. And when you get into that atmosphere where you're top 15, top 12, on into the top 10, it's a lot of times it's like in the Big 12, it seems like every night you're playing against somebody else that's ranked in the top 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever. So I think that's the one thing that has held their ranking back, is that they don't have like you say, a marquee win. They have some really good wins over some really, really good basketball teams. If I was somebody from another league, I would not want any part of playing Miami or Florida State in the postseason. NC State can jump up and bite you, even though they got clobbered by Louisville a couple of weeks ago. But I think that's the one thing that's probably held them back out of the top 10, is the ACC doesn't have enough teams ranked that high to where it counts to the point where it can get you an entry into the top 10 in the country.
Right. That's where the North Carolina loss hurts Virginia.
Yeah.
That's the Louisville win does not have the same street cred as it would had Louisville's point guard been healthy and in the starting lineup.
Right.
National pollsters are very well aware that this Louisville team is different.
Now, if they beat Duke, it all changes overnight.
Different story on Saturday. Yeah. We'll talk about the Duke matchup. If you beat the number one team, gosh, you beat NC State. And I don't want this to be a trap game. I think every game that's on Virginia's roster calendar, it's scheduled from here on out, it's a potential trap game because Virginia is clearly getting the best their opponents have to offer, except for Damon Stoudemire's Ramblin' Wreck, who looked like a junior varsity high school team on the floor, especially in the first half against Virginia. But Miami, that's as good as Miami is going to play. And Miami did that on the road in the John Paul Jones Arena, and Miami had a double-digit lead and clearly, for most of the first half, looked like the better ball club. And then he came. He's done a very good job, Ryan Odom, of second half adjustments.
He really has, and that's something that I think his father Dave was really good at. That Terry Holland was pretty good at, and Tony Bennett was a master of doing. And I think Ryan Odom is falling right into that category. He makes a lot of in-game adjustments, but he makes some really solid halftime adjustments too, and that's allowed them to win a few games that perhaps some other teams would not have pulled out.
Wesley, I hope I do not mess up your last name. Is it Kinchelo? Am I saying that right, Wesley? Kinchelo? He says, can you guys, he's watching in Waynesboro, by the way. He says, can we talk about the lack of coverage for Virginia and its sports teams? He says, I always tell my buddy that Virginia is the Rodney Dangerfield of sports. He says the lack of coverage for an entire athletic department disappoints him. He's a diehard Virginia fan. He's got the Cavalier mascot, the old school one, the OG Cavalier mascot, as his profile pic. He loves the program. ACC Network tonight? There's been a couple of times as well where I'm kind of a 12 o'clock tip-off for the Duke matchup?
Yeah, I'm surprised at a noon game time for that one, but you would think that would be a little more prime time. I don't know. It's hard to figure out how the TV companies determine who's going to be playing at what time and all that. There's so many of them involved now with the ESPN and the ACC Network and Fox and CBS and your favorite, the CW?
CW, so
the good thing is that Virginia basketball, just about every one of their games, I think all of their games have been on some sort of TV, even though it might be the ESPN X Extra or whatever, which is not always easy to get, but I don't know how to answer that. I think they're getting pretty good exposure around the country. I thought that maybe I think sometimes when it comes down to stuff like game day and stuff like that for football, that they've been ignored by ESPN, and I don't quite understand that. There were a couple of games this season they probably could have hosted game day. They've hosted it in basketball several times before, but I think generally they get a pretty fair share. And the ACC Network, the only thing I don't like is the 9 o'clock games because it's hard for fan bases to get the games that start that late and end that late, and even for some people who have to get up and work the next morning to be able to stay up and watch the games. And of course, the kids that are UVA fans, depends on what your parents will believe in as to whether you can stay up and watch the game or not.
One of the few things my wife and I argue about is allowing our 7-year-old and our 3-year-old to watch the end of a 9 o'clock basketball game with Dad.
They're probably asleep anyway.
I am all for that. My wife is not all for our 7-year-old and our 3-year-old staying up to 11 o'clock to watch the end of a 9 o'clock game. Sometimes we sneak them out. I sneak the boys out after she's fallen asleep. She's watching right now. I will catch some grief from her. I love her.
Yes, you will.
James Madison is watching the program, and fellas, he says, don't forget about the great starts for the baseball and softball teams as well.
Yeah, they're tearing it up, and it's great to see. And the women's basketball team is flourishing too. I mean, they're let's see, they play Carolina. Was it Thursday night? I think. And if they win that game, they'll be in a tie for third, I believe, in the ACC regular season standings. So that's they have their most regular season wins in more than quarter of a century, going all the way back to 2000. So there's a lot to celebrate if you're a Wahoo fan.
Jeremy Wilson in Eastern Tennessee says Ryan Odom needs to be the coach of the year. What he has done in his first year is nothing short of amazing. I think he is now the ACC coach of the year. I think Lucas, the Miami coach, was his main competition for ACC coach of the year. Both first-year coaches, both taking over for Legends, both taking over programs that suffered down on their luck this past year. Lucas and Odom both riding high. Odom beats Lucas. Odom gets the edge for ACC Coach of the Year. Maybe the folks in Durham say John Shire should be the guy. Shire's loaded with talent. He's got a top 3 draft pick, which is a little bit different. Not saying UVA is not loaded with talent, but there's no top 3 draft pick here. Again, I'm living in a fishbowl and I'm biased. I think Odom is the ACC Coach of the Year. My question for you is, shortlist for National Coach of the Year? And then what keeps him from getting National Coach of the Year? Who's his competition?
Well, he's definitely on that list. I don't know how short or long it is, but yeah, he and Lucas are the 2 fastest first-year ACC coaches to 20 wins since Bill Guthridge did it back in 1997.
Dean Smith's right hand?
Yeah, when Dean Smith suddenly shocked the world and announced in the summer that he was stepping down. And I remember dropping everything. I heard the news that morning, and I dropped everything and drove straight to Chapel Hill for the press conference and from here. But yeah, Odom did it in 24 games. Lucas did it in 25 games.
The national media is misrepresenting that statistic.
Well, yeah.
They did it again in the UVA-Miami game.
Yeah,
And they said Lucas was the youngest.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Or the quickest to do it.
The quickest, yeah. They haven't done their homework. But both of those guys are definitely on the list. Actually, somebody said that Lucas wasn't on the national list, which I think is a mistake because he's done a fabulous job at Miami. And Shire, of course, there's a lot of argument for him winning it because of what he's done the last couple of years. And even though they blew the big lead in the finals last year, I think this team is not as talented as last year's Duke team, but maybe more resilient. And so that's something that in the corner. The BYU coach, I think, is on that list for National Coach of the Year. I haven't examined that list very thoroughly, but I'm sure there's quite a few candidates on it, but Ryan Odom is definitely on that list.
I want to give you a statistic, viewers and listeners here. Virginia's 24-3 overall. Ranked ahead of Virginia Illinois at 10 with 6 losses. Gonzaga at 9 with 2 losses. Purdue at 8 with 5 losses. Florida at 7 with 6 losses. UConn with 3 losses at 6. Houston with 4 losses at 5. Iowa State with 4 losses at 4. Michigan 2 losses at 3. Arizona 2 losses at 2. And Duke 2 losses at 1. Just from an eye test standpoint, and we know why they're ranked at 11. It's the lack of marquee victory. Maybe it's the depth of the ACC and how it compares to the Southeastern Conference or, some of these other conferences.
More the Big 12 this year.
Big 12, right? But from an eye test standpoint, they should be ranked ahead of Illinois. From an eye test standpoint, they should be ranked ahead of Purdue. And Florida's got 6 losses at 7.
Florida's pretty good, though.
Florida's loaded.
Yeah.
They got 6 losses, though.
Yeah.
They're loaded.
Yeah, they play a tougher schedule, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue that Virginia should be in the top 10, but I think that again, that's the one thing that's holding them back, and it's a shame that the ACC, as good as it's been this year, hasn't gotten a little bit more national respect. I think in terms of the top 25 polls. And part of that is because, Florida State got off to a slow start. Louisville got off to a slow start. Carolina's had their struggles. But come tournament time, if I were some of these other leagues, I wouldn't want to play an ACC team in the NCAA tournament.
This team has got Duke on Saturday. What do you think that line's going to be?
I'm guessing maybe 4.5. Something like that, maybe 5 at the most. I can't imagine it being more than that. Might be less than that, but I'm certainly no odds maker. But Duke on its home floor you're asking a lot of anybody to go into Cameron and beat those guys when they're good, and they're normally good. And again, it's just a different. I've been in a lot of arenas in this country over my career, and I still haven't run into anywhere that's as intimidating as Cameron can be when things are snowballing on you. And so I think that's the biggest thing for Virginia in that game is to get off to a good start and not fall behind and put pressure on itself in that game.
Comments continue to come in. Jeremy Who wants to know what you think Virginia's ceiling is come March Madness.
I hear a lot of people say Sweet 16, which would be a major accomplishment for a guy to come in and rebuild a roster of guys from all over the country and outside the country and take them to the Sweet 16 would be one of the best coaching jobs that you could ask for. So that sounds about right to me. And obviously, once you get into postseason play, if you get the right matchups and if you're playing well and you get hot, anything can happen. We've seen that time and again here with teams that got hot at the right time and ended up in the Final Four and winning the national title in one instance. We've seen some others that were probably had the capabilities of reaching the Final Four and blew it for one reason or the other. The other team got hot. You got cold at the wrong time. 2016 is something I will never forget. When they had a huge lead against Syracuse in Chicago, and we were sitting there making reservations during the game for Houston in the Final Four, and we saw what happened when Syracuse threw the full court press on Virginia and they became unglued. It's one of the saddest locker rooms I've ever been in my life after that game. So once you get into the postseason, it's so unpredictable, and a lot of it's matchups and how you're playing at the time.
Comments continue to come in from the viewers and listeners. This is a great question. Hootie Ratcliffe, what do you think is the best closing lineup for this Virginia team?
I think the one we saw on the floor, and we're seeing on the floor a lot, with DeRitter, Ugo, Lewis, Mallory, sometimes Hall, and Chikari. So it just depends on who you want to pull in or out of that. But
That's my closing lineup.
that's the one that's the most potent.
Yeah, that's my closing lineup. Hugo, DeRitter, Sam Lewis, Chance.
Chikari.
You go Jakari over Hall?
Yeah, because of it depends on what the game situation is.
Because Hall's a little better free throw shooter.
If you need a 3-point shooter, or you need a guy playing a little better defense and a free throw shooter and
ball handler.
Ball handler.
Yeah, Chance is on that floor. So definitely the 4 lock for me are Chance, Sam Lewis, DeRitter, and Hugo, and either basically what Hootie just said. If you're down and you need a little offensive punch, Jakari. If you're up and you're trying to hold a lead, Hall over Jakari because Hall has the edge on ball handling and free throw shooting and defense. Mm-hmm. Regardless, nice little problem to have.
Yeah,
and not even Malik Thomas in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice little problem to have. Or Grunlow.
If he's playing like he did the other day.
Right. Other thoughts that we haven't highlighted on the show?
Again, I know a lot of people are looking to Saturday, but you can't ignore NC State. They can come in and beat you. They're 19-8. They're 26th in the net, which is only 11 spots behind Virginia, and they're tied for third in the league. And they're fighting for a double bye in the ACC tournament as well. And they're a different team than Virginia. They don't have the size that Virginia does. They're not as physical as Virginia, but they have a lot of guys who can score. They have 4 guys averaging between 13 and 14 points a game. They clobbered Carolina recently. They lost a 1-point game to Miami. That shows you they're no joke. They beat the Hokies. Their only bad loss lately was when they were just completely obliterated at Louisville. But Virginia's, like you said, a 5.5 to 6-point favorite. And Will Wade was talking about the fact that they've changed some of the things with their team. In that first meeting back in early January, Darian Williams, their 6'6" senior, and Kadar Copeland, another 6'6" senior, their roles have changed a little bit in the fact that they're the 2 principal ball handlers now, which has added more stable nature to their offense. And offensively, it's a pretty good team. A lot of guys can jump up and bite you. They're not the best defensive team in the world. They've given up 75 points and 80 points a lot in the last 7 or 8 games. But and I think they gave up 118 against Louisville. So it could be another thriller diller tonight at JPJ, like so many of these games have been of late. And make sure you take your Pepto before the game.
You got the Pepto. I got the IPAs for me. Jeremy Hu says the tickets for Saturday on the secondary market, more than $1,000 a ticket.
I'm not surprised because, Cameron is not a big venue. It seats just around 10,000 people. And they had chances years ago to build a new arena or enlarge that one. And they decided to keep it as it is and make it a special ticket to be able to get into, which
It's genius.
As long as you're good, that works.
100%. It is absolutely genius.
And they've been good.
Yeah, they've been
been really good.
They've been very, very good.
And so I'm not surprised at the ticket prices. It's you never know who you might see in the crowd at Cameron, former players, celebrities, etc. Because again, it's a bucket list venue like Lambeau Field and Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium and places like that that a lot of people want to experience once in their life as a sports fan. And it's certainly Madison Square Garden, et cetera. It's one of those places, Fall Gallon Arena. It's a special place, and you're going to pay. You're going to pay to go to those places, especially for a big game.
How about we close with this? You want to give a little tease for the viewers and listeners? We got 9 states currently watching. We topped out at 13 states earlier in the show. You want to give a little tease to the viewers and listeners? What's on the near horizon for JerryRatcliffe.com?
Yeah. Interviewed Craig Littlepage last night, the former Virginia AD, about his role in bringing Tony Bennett here. We're just kind of feeding off of last Saturday's enthusiasm for the program and to celebrate Tony Bennett. We tried to get Craig last week, but he was tied up. Does a lot of consulting work and searches for ADs and coaches and stuff for a company. And so we were able to get him last night for a podcast, the Hootie and JJ show this week. So if you want to know the inner workings of how to find a great basketball coach and how to talk a guy into coming to your program all the way across the country when he's turned down Indiana, Marquette, LSU, Stanford, etc. You'll get all the inside scoop on that from Craig right out of his mouth. That will be covering the NC State game like crazy, obviously gearing up for the Duke game this weekend, and then we'll have all the other Olympic sports, etc., as the week goes by.
JerryRatcliffe.com, ladies and gentlemen. Some announcements on the horizon as well at JerryRatcliffe.com. We encourage you to stand by with bated breath, my friends. He is a Virginia Sports Hall of Famer. He is iconic, institutional. He is a Virginia sounding board and just a breath of fresh air. Jerry Ratcliffe at JerryRatcliffe.com. Judah Wickower is behind the camera, just doing some amazing things digitally and problem solving for our company. My name is Jerry Miller, and I think what you see here is the water cooler of conversation when it comes down to Virginia sports and UVA athletics. And
I've had so many people come up to me in the arena and grocery stores and everywhere else, and just talking about how much they love this show, and they make it part of their weekly regimen. So we thank you for your support. Absolutely,
and we're grateful for your support, guys. For Judah, for Hootie, my name is Jerry Miller, the I Love CVille show, guys, at 12:30. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everybody.